Hi, Armand here with the November 2018 forecast. And before we go any further, you know what you should do. You should click like on the bottom because you're going to like it, and if you have to wait till later, you're going to forget it. And you should also consider a ride out to armanddiaz.com where you can get great things like an in-depth written monthly forecast and free newsletters. And who doesn't want stuff like that? Now on to November 2018. So, the old saying is, if you don't like the cosmic weather, just wait a few minutes. And that really applies to this month. There are so many changes. We have planets changing sign and direction virtually every couple of days. The complexity of it is really hard to unpack. And I'm not even going to try to do it in this video. And I'm not really trying to do it on the website either. The truth of the matter is there's just too many changes. Yet out of complexity emerges a little bit of simplicity. And the basic idea is you might need to wait. We're just uncertain about things. Things are too changeable in November to really get a handle on where things are, where they're going. And certainly, it's a little bit early to try to figure out what you should be doing about things. Let's get into a couple of the little details. Well, a lot of the details, really. We start right away. I'm looking over at my notes over here because there's a lot of things. We start in November. Venus is retrograde all month. Well, Venus is retrograde until November 16th, and then she's in her shadow as she goes forward. So she's retrograded into Libra. She's gone back from Scorpio into Libra, and then on November 16th she goes forward in Libra, and really just about the end of the month she'll get into, actually on December 2nd, she'll get back into Scorpio. So the way we kind of look at this is when she was retrograding in Scorpio, we're going through this sort of internal process of figuring out what we want and need in relationship. And then when she's in the Libra phase, backing up and then coming forward, it's more like, well, now that I know what I want and need, what can I do about it? How should we change the form of relationship? How can we change the way that we relate? So the initial phase of the retrograde in Scorpio, more internal, more emotional, more bringing up stuff from the past and all that. And the second phase of it is really much more about deciding what to do. Now, next month, of course, Venus will be going back through Scorpio. We'll have to deal with that on its own terms. But for right now, I think that it's a little bit lighter sort of feeling in terms of relationship stuff. We're not delving so deeply into the emotional side of things. We've done that. What are we going to do about it? So Venus is pretty much steady state through November 16th when she turns around and goes forward. Uranus will be changing signs on November 6th. He's retrograding back into Aries. Now, Uranus and Aries, particularly at the end of Aries, was a very significant time for the collective. This is the sort of strongman vibe that comes with politics and so on. And it is strong man type of vibe. It is that real sort of authoritarian type of vibe that is so strong with Uranus at the end of Aries. It's not a great mixture to be happening right around Election Day in the U.S., but we can sort of hope for the best. And after all, no matter what the cosmic winds are blowing, we can make our own decisions. But there are some real concerns there. There's real concerns for the way Uranus in Aries is going to have its effect on just about everything. In our personal lives, you might look back to right around the middle of May as being the time, and maybe you can sort of scout out some time from August, early August. But really, middle of May would be the time that you might say, this is when this little story, this little subplot in my life began, and now I'm getting a little bit more of a sense of what the next installment is. Although, to tell you the truth, it could be next spring before we really get to hear the end of that particular story. Uranus goes back into Aries on the 6th. The new moon in Scorpio, right at the middle of Scorpio, where it's very powerful, is on the 7th. This is kind of an emotional reset point for us. In certain ways, we sort of look at this and say, where do I have power? Or, in fact, who has the power? But it's a new moon. It's a new moon, so this isn't a big overt type of process. This is a more inward process. I doubt it's going to be a quiet new moon. Don't get me wrong. It's not going to be a quiet new moon because of Uranus going back into Aries. And a day later, Jupiter goes into Sagittarius. Now, Jupiter going into Sagittarius is kind of good news. I mean, Jupiter in Scorpio, Jupiter's always kind of helpful where he is, but he's going to be more helpful in Sagittarius. Uplifting, better sense of hope and promise to things. Of course, that applies equally to everybody. You know, for example, if we look at politics, we could see increased political polarization with Jupiter in Sagittarius. You know, Sagittarius is a truth-seeking sign, and it's wonderful. But when it's a truth-knowing sign, it can be a little intolerable. This is not about Sagittarians personally. This is about the planets going through there. So Jupiter in Sagittarius, you know, I mean, it's got its positive side. It's got its uplifting side. We get some fire in the sky. You know, we went through most of October, and I neglected to mention this in October's forecast, but we went through most of October without any planets in fire. No planets. No dwarf planets. I don't like that term. No asteroids. None of the major asteroids in fire signs. Very watery, earthy, a little bit of air, but no fire, no inspiration, no enthusiasm. And with with Venus retrograde, there was a bit of a drag on things for certain. Now we get fire in the sky. And the thing is, it could be almost too much of a good thing. Mercury is also in Sagittarius, and that's a sort of a little bit of a problematic thing because Mercury in Sagittarius likes to get a look at the big picture, but can leap to conclusions, can, jump at, like, can speak without thinking type of thing. It's just like, get the idea, I know what's up, and you just sort of make a big speech about things without really having your facts lined up. And that's a Mercury in Sagittarius. Look at my collar over there on the side. That's a Mercury in Sagittarius type of thing. So Jupiter in Sagittarius might do a little bit to amplify that end of things, and that's not exactly ideal. Certainly, though, with Uranus in Aries, Jupiter in Sagittarius, Mercury in Sagittarius, we have much more fire in the sky. There is at least, for positive purposes, there is at least a good amount of positive enthusiasm, inspiration. You sort of feel that you've got some spirit going on, and that's a good thing. Mercury, though. Mercury is in the shadow of his retrograde at the beginning of the month, and just as Venus stations to go direct, they're doing a little dance. Venus stations to go direct, Mercury stations to retrograde on the 16th, and we have Mercury retrograde and in the sign of his debility, Sagittarius. It could be a little bit of a problem. From what I see already with Mercury in shadow, this looks like to be a real bear of a retrograde. So be extra, extra cautious with all those Mercury retrograde things. Be very careful about, don't buy a car, computer, that type of thing. Back up all your stuff when it comes to your computer and your phone. Good Lord, if Apple puts another upgrade on my iPhone, I think I'm going to go mad. Last time with Mercury going into shadow, I upgraded and my mail program broke. The pedometer thing broke. It's just been a nightmare already. And I see a lot of other folks are having Mercury retrograde type problems, and he's not even retrograde yet. So this is going to be a tough one, I think. So be a little bit prepared for it. And, of course, the big thing to do with Mercury retrograde is to try not to do too much in the way of mercurial stuff. The next thing that I'm going to mention is that Mars squares Jupiter on the 19th. This is not a big picture type of thing, but it does suggest to me that you want to be a little careful. Hold on. Excuse me. On the 23rd and 24th, we have a double whammy there. We have the full moon at 0 degrees Gemini. That's exciting in and of itself, especially if you have planets around 0 degrees Gemini. But the full moon on 0 degrees Gemini, it should be relatively fun, and with Neptune stationing the very next day, so we're definitely from the 21st onwards, we're in the whole swirl of Neptune station. It should just be fun. You could be, get lost in a fantasy. You can, it's a very creative time. It's a very creative time. So that period, 21st, 22nd, 23rd, and 24th. 25th ought to be a real hoot. Don't take things too seriously, though. With Mercury retrograde and Neptune stationing, this is not a time to be doing anything that is serious. This is not a time to be signing on the dotted line, making a major decision in terms of finances or anything else. This is a time, play with it, see what happens, take the trip. This is the time you take the trip. But don't think that this is where you're going to get the final answer to things. That's still coming. And then the mood shifts from the 26th out, really kind of, I want to say, well, it's really hot 26th, 27th, but it's really through the end of the month. We have Mercury, the Sun, Jupiter, and Mars kind of tangling all together in the various signs that they're in. And I would say this would be a time when words could be a little hot. There might be a little bit of polarization with things. It could be a time when, we don't really have all the facts in yet, especially Mercury's retrograde, Neptune just stationed. We don't have all the facts. But we're thinking that that we do, and we're ready to go on it. So, Neptune stationed to go direct on the 24th kind of keys us up, and then we're getting all this fiery energy around communication, and that really isn't the most helpful thing. So, you want to kind of hold your tongue. Watch out for road rage at the end of the month. People are going to be a little bit hot, and oh my gosh, if you're one of those people that gets up at 3 in the morning to go Friday shopping, that thing. Well, anyways, expect that things will be especially bubbly during that time. At the very end of the month, Venus opposes Uranus, right? So Venus is going to oppose Uranus at the end of the month. It echoes an aspect that was the same exact thing. Venus opposed Uranus on October 31st, just before the planets changed signs. Anything that began right around the end of October is liable to get a final message at the end of November. In fact, it could have been something that began more or less around the beginning to middle of September. Go forward, go backwards, go forwards. And so, particularly with anything with romance or finance, you're liable to get the second or the final installment in the story. This is particularly significant for things having to do with our personal relationships. And you might want to stop by relationshipsandastrology.com to get some more detailed information about this type of thing. But the thing is that as we get to the end of November, we're finally starting to find out the end of the story that began, I would say late August, and has been playing out all the way through September, October, and November. And it's really going to be the beginning of December through the middle of December that we finally get the end of this installment in the story, at any rate. So whatever's been sort of hanging up in the air since late summer kind of starts to come to some sort of resolution around this time. Of course, with Venus opposite Uranus, the last thing we would expect is that this is a stable kind of energy. This is going to be, yet another surprise, yet one more thing that gets thrown into the mix that we have to sort out. And that's what the whole theme of the month is. There's surprises, there are reversals, there's changes going on. And it's a time to watch and see what's happening in your life. Watch and see what's happening in career, in romance, in everything. Look and see what's happening. Take in the information. Process it as best you can. But everything is really up in the air. This is not the time to be making firm decisions. This is not the time to be saying, I know what I gotta do. The puzzle is at this point in time 90% complete, but you don't know what those missing pieces look like. And I will see you in December.